Hello students, welcome to E-Pathasala. I am Dr. Vijay, Assistant Professor in Physiology, and I am going to talk to you about the parathyroid hormones. Parathyroid hormones, as you know, are secreted from the parathyroid glands, and they play a very important role in the calcium and phosphate metabolism, which affects the bone as well as the plasma concentration of these substances. And as before going into the parathyroid hormone, we should know a bit about the bone physiology as well as about the calcium and phosphate metabolism. Parathyroid hormone, as you know, as I already told you earlier, are secreted from the parathyroid glands, which are situated on the poles of the thyroid gland. And this thyroid gland is situated in the anterior part of the neck. We will have an overview of the bone physiology. We know that bone is nothing but the skeletal framework of the human body, and it is composed of organic matrix, which is also called as osteoid, and inorganic minerals. The organic matrix is made up of type 1 collagen, which is arranged concentrically. This concentric arrangement of collagen tissue in the bone is called as Haversian System. The inorganic minerals are deposited in the organic matrix, and they are calcium, phosphate carbonate, and magnesium, and they are deposited in the form of hydroxyapatite crystals. If we look at the structure of a bone, it has an outer cortex and an inner trabecular part. This outer cortex is a compact structure, and the inner trabecular bone is spongy. If you take a long bone, it has a shaft called as diaphysis, and both their ends are called as epiphysis. The diaphysis is separated from the epiphysis by a plate called as epiphyseal plate. This picture shows the structure of a bone. And in this picture, we can see the compact and spongy part of the bones. Here also, we can see the structure of a bone which depicts the spongy and compact part of the bone. And in this picture, we can see the Haversian system of the bone. Here, the collagen is arranged concentrically. And now, we should know about the bone remodeling. Bone remodeling is nothing but a continuous process of bone turnover. Bone turnover is nothing but bone formation and bone resorption. Bone formation is a process where the organic matrix is synthesized and the minerals get deposited in the matrix. Bone resorption is a process where the matrix is lysed and the minerals are removed from the bone. And if you take the bone consists of three types of cells. They are osteoblasts, osteocytes, and osteoclasts. The osteoblasts are the cells which are responsible for the bone formation, and they are located in the periphery. When they mature, they move into the central part of the bone and they lose their bone forming activity and they become osteocytes. These osteocytes pump the calcium from the inner part of the bone into the plasma, and this process is known as osteocytic osteolysis. The osteoclasts are the cells which are responsible for bone resorption, and they are also found in the peripheral part of the bone, and when they act, they remove the calcium, especially they cause the demineralization of the bone. Here we can see the various types of cells in the bone. Coming to the process of bone formation, we already know that the collagen is synthesized by the osteoblasts. In this collagen, the minerals like calcium and phosphates are deposited. This process is called as mineralization. Thus formed minerals, they later change into hydroxyapatite crystals. This process is known as complete mineralization. Bone resorption is a process where the bone matrix gets destroyed or lysed by the release of enzymes like phosphatases, collagenases, etc. Here, the cells responsible for this process are osteoclasts. Now, let's have a brief overview about the calcium metabolism. The normal plasma concentration of calcium is 9 to 11 milligrams per dl. And the calcium is stored primarily in the mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum of the cell, and in the body it is found primarily in the bones and the teeth. Regarding the functions of calcium, it is responsible for bone formation, and it is also responsible for genesis and maintenance of action potential as well as the pacemaker potential. It is crucial for the excitability of the nerves and muscles, and also it acts as a second messenger for cellular activation. Regarding the calcium metabolism, the total calcium in the human body is 1 to 1.5 kilograms, and in the extracellular fluid it is 1 to 1.5 grams, and in the intracellular fluid it is 10 to 15 grams. The normal daily dietary intake of calcium is 1 gram. out of which the intestine absorbs 300 milligrams. At the same time, the intestine also secretes 150 milligrams of calcium. The fecal excretion of calcium is 850 milligrams, and in the urine, 150 milligrams of calcium is excreted. 500 milligrams of calcium from the plasma is continuously exchanged with the bones. Regarding the phosphate metabolism, the normal plasma concentration of phosphates is 2.5 to 4.5 milligrams per dl, and to emphasize the importance of phosphates, it is present in the bone and teeth. It is also present in the creatinine, ATP and phosphate, etc. It is a part of second messengers like cyclic AMP, inositol triphosphate, etc. It is also present in DNA and RNA. And the phosphorylation of intracellular proteins results in the cellular activation, and phosphates also act as intracellular buffer. And the total content of phosphates in the human body is 600 grams, and the daily dietary intake of phosphates is 1400 milligrams, out of which 1200 milligrams is absorbed in the intestine. At the same time, intestine also secretes 200 milligrams. The fecal excretion of phosphates is 400 milligrams, whereas 1000 milligrams of phosphates is excreted via urine. 200 milligrams of phosphates from the plasma is constantly exchanged with the bones. This picture outlines the phosphate metabolism. Calcium and phosphates in the human body are regulated by three major mechanisms. Number one, they are controlled through the exchange of ions between the plasma and bones. Number two, the intestinal absorption of these ions can be increased or decreased. Number three, reabsorption can also be increased or decreased. There are three major hormones which control these mechanisms. The parathyroid hormone or parathormone, it increases plasma calcium concentration, whereas it decreases phosphates. Calcitonin, it decreases plasma calcium and phosphates, whereas vitamin D, it increases both plasma calcium and phosphates. Now we are going to see about the parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone is secreted from the parathyroid glands, and this is also known as parathormone. Parathyroid hormone is a main regulator of calcium and phosphate metabolism. There are 4 parathyroid glands which are embedded posteriorly at the poles of the thyroid gland. Each gland weighs about 50 milligrams, and they are supplied by thyroid arteries. This picture shows the parathyroid gland. There are 2 types of cells found in the parathyroid gland. The chief cells, they are plenty in number and they secrete parathyroid hormone. And the oxophil cells, they are less numerous, and as the name suggests, they contain oxophil granules. This is a histological view that shows the 2 types of glandular cells. The parathyroid hormone is a polypeptide which contains 84 amino acids. It weighs about 95,000, and the functional element of parathyroid hormone is its N-terminal. The parathyroid hormone is synthesized from pre-pro-PTH. In the endoplasmic reticulum, the pre-pro-PTH is converted into pro-PTH. This pro-PTH in the Golgi apparatus forms the parathyroid hormone. Thus formed parathyroid hormone is stored in the granules of the chief cells. Chief regulator of parathyroid hormone secretion is plasma calcium. Whenever there is an increased concentration of ionized calcium in the plasma, parathyroid hormone secretion decreases. The receptor which senses the level of calcium in the plasma is known as calcium sensing receptor. This receptor is located on the membrane of chief cells and acts through the second messengers like inositol triphosphate and diacylglycerol. This picture shows the parathyroid hormone regulation by the plasma calcium. Vitamin D is the next major regulator which inhibits the secretion of parathyroid hormone. The plasma phosphate level has an indirect effect because it lowers the plasma calcium and it inhibits the formation of vitamin D. This picture shows the regulation by plasma phosphates. There are other agents which play a minor role in the secretion of parathyroid hormone. The substances like cyclic AMP, beta receptor agonists, dopamine, histamine, magnesium, etc., they increase the parathyroid hormone secretion. The substances like prostaglandins, alpha receptor agonists, etc., they decrease parathyroid hormone secretion. This is an overall view of the regulation of parathyroid hormone secretion. Coming to the metabolism, the normal concentration of parathyroid hormone in the plasma is 10 to 60 picograms per ml, and this hormone is metabolized in the liver by the Kupffer cells and excreted by the kidneys. The parathyroid hormone can bind to 3 types of receptors. PTH1R, it binds to parathyroid hormone and PTH related proteins. and PTH2R, it binds to parathyroid hormone, but it cannot bind with the PTH related proteins. Whereas the PTH3R, it reacts only with the carboxy terminal of the parathyroid hormone. Coming to the mechanism of action of PTH, the receptors, they are coupled with the G proteins like G, S and GQ. So they act through the adenylate cyclic AMP system and phospholipase C IP3DAG system. This picture shows the mechanism of action of PTH. Now about the physiological actions of parathyroid hormone, its primary action is to increase the level of plasma calcium and to decrease the level of plasma phosphates. The parathyroid hormone does this by acting through kidney, bone and gastrointestinal tract. In the kidney, it acts through the receptors located in the epithelial cells of the proximal and distal tubules. It acts by acting on the distal tubules and loop of Henle. It increases the reabsorption of calcium. By acting on the proximal tubule, it decreases the reabsorption of phosphate and it facilitates the phosphate excretion. It also facilitates the hydroxylation of 25-hydroxycholecalciferol and it increases the formation of vitamin D. In the bone, the receptors are located in both the osteoblasts and osteoclasts. PTH stimulates the osteoclastic activity and causes bone resorption. It also activates the osteocytic osteolysis. Both these actions release the calcium from the bone into the plasma and they raise the calcium level in the plasma. In the lower doses, it acts on the osteoblast and it increases its activity, whereas in the higher doses, it decreases the osteoblastic activity. This picture depicts the action of parathyroid hormone on the bone. Regarding the actions on gastrointestinal tract, parathyroid hormone increases the intestinal absorption of calcium. Actually, this is an indirect action mediated through the formation of vitamin D. Now, we are going to see about the abnormal secretions of parathyroid hormone, the applied aspects. The hypersecretion of parathyroid hormone is called as hyperparathyroidism and this is of two types. The primary hyperparathyroidism is caused by a tumor in the parathyroid gland and the patients with this condition will have the features of hypercalcemia, hypophosphatemia, demineralization of the bone, hypercalciuria and renal stones. When this condition persists for a longer time, the chronically elevated levels of parathyroid hormone causes a condition called as osteitis fibrosa where the bone becomes fibrosed. The secondary type of hyperparathyroidism is due to causes like chronic renal diseases and rickets. The mechanism here is they cause hypocalcemia which elevate the secretion of parathyroid hormone. Hypersecretion of parathyroid hormone is known as hypoparathyroidism and the common presentation is pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. Here, the parathyroid hormone level will be normal in the plasma, but the patients will have the features of parathyroid hormone deficiency. This is a congenital condition and this is caused by a receptor defect. The other type of secondary hypoparathyroidism is due to the accidental removal of the parathyroid glands during the thyroid surgery. This is the commonest presentation. Here, the patients will have severe hypocalcemia and increased bone density. This decreased calcium level in the plasma causes a condition known as hypocalcemic tetany. The tetany, as we know, is caused by hypocalcemia and the patients with tetany are treated by administering ionized calcium parenterally. They can also be given parenteral injection of parathormone. When we look at the clinical features of tetany, in Twostek sign, the facial muscles contract when the facial nerve is tapped at the angle of jaw. In Trousy's sign, the patient has a spasm of upper extremity muscles that causes the flexion of wrist and thumb with extension of fingers. When a patient has a spasm of ankle joint muscles along with the spasm of wrist muscles, it is called as carpopedal spasm. In severe cases, the patient might go in for laryngospasm, which ultimately result in asphyxia and death. Finally, there is a protein with parathyroid hormone activity called as parathyroid hormone related protein, PTHRP. It is transcripted by a gene located in the chromosome 12. These proteins are found in the ovary, breast, kidney and skin. In malignant conditions of these structures, the calcium level will be elevated due to increased response to PTHRP. This is called as humoral hypercalcemia. Coming to the functions of PTHRP, they stimulate proliferation of chondrocytes and PTH RP acts as a growth factor for skin, hair follicles and breast, and they also facilitate calcium transport in the placenta. Students, to summarize the important points we have discussed about the parathyroid hormones. Parathyroid hormones increase the level of plasma calcium and decrease the level of plasma phosphates, and they act through three important organs, which are bone, the gastrointestinal tract and the kidney. They increase the calcium absorption from the kidney, and they also increase the phosphate excretion from the kidney. They also increase the calcium absorption from the gastrointestinal tract. This is not a direct effect. They increase the formation of vitamin D. Especially they facilitate the hydroxylation of vitamin D, and this vitamin D increases the absorption of calcium from the gastrointestinal tract. And they also affect the bone. They actually increase the osteoclastic activity of the bone, so they facilitate the bone resorption. So the calcium is demineralized from the bone and they are released into the plasma. So this is the overall effect of parathyroid hormone in human body. So they affect the plasma calcium concentration. So it is an important hormone which affects the plasma concentration. So if there is a deficiency of parathyroid hormone, it immediately affects the plasma calcium level. So the patient is subjected to hypoparathyroidism, which decreases the plasma calcium level, which produces neuromuscular defects.